Hi, my name's Hannah Gaventa and I'm from London. I work in international development and I work for a company called Palladium. We are looking at reducing poverty around the world by improving skills and access to education in 9 middle-income countries. And I wanted to talk to you today about Parshat Chukat. This is the week's parasha coming up soon. And there's a really pivotal moment in this parasha, a moment of crisis. The Jews are wandering in the desert. They've been wandering for a while. They are fully relying on God and Moses and their leaders for food, for water. They are walking around the desert, and in this week's parasha, Miriam dies and there's no water. So the verse says that the Jews were wandering in the desert. They arrived at a place called Kadesh, and they arrived there. Miriam dies, there's no water, and then they complain. And they go to Moses, their leader, who is actually in grief. He's suffering, he's sad that his sister has died. And now the people are coming to him and complaining. And in a rash moment of anger, he lashes out, and instead of speaking to the rock that God tells him to do, he actually hits the rock, and he's punished for that. And this moment for me is a really interesting moment where a great leader has died. Miriam has died. She has looked after Moses his whole life. She's watched him as he floats down the River Nile. He is looked after by her as a child in the palace, and he is now in the desert looking out for the Jewish people as well. And when she dies, he experiences this huge loss, and he doesn't know how to turn. He's in a heightened state of emotion, and he's really upset, and he does this rash act. He does this emotional act, and it's really understandable in this heightened period of stress to make those rash acts, to do something that you wouldn't normally do. We know now in the time of COVID how important it is to have fresh, clean water, to have all our supplies. And we saw, especially in the UK, all the panic buying that was happening when people were anxious, people were panicking, people didn't know how to react. In the same time, when Miriam died and the water disappeared, the Jewish people were panicking, they were anxious, they didn't know what to do, they didn't know who to turn to. And we are in a similar moment now where we have to think about how we should react. Should we hit the rock like Moses did? Should we have a rash act of emotion? Or should we channel our emotions into thinking about others who may not have the fresh, clean water that we are able to access here in the UK? The World Bank talks about how 2 billion people don't have access to clean water throughout the year, let alone in the COVID times where it's even more vital that they have access to clean water. For me, this Parshat Chukat, really does make me think about these things. It makes me think, let's take a pause and reflect on this story that the Torah is telling us, how we can react today in our times. I personally want to donate to an organization that's looking at water and sanitation in the world. I want to read more, I want to understand more about what it's like to live in a refugee camp with no access to safe drinking water, what it's like to live in a community after a disaster with no safe drinking water, and what are the actions that I can do and our global Jewish community to do to really make that difference in the world, and to use our stories as an impetus to make change. Shabbat Shalom.